In a lot of different courses that you've seen online, a lot of different conferences you've been to, they're always talking about the technology of AI. But what about the business of AI? The business of AI is important to know because we need to know where to put our money. We also need to know where to put our time as far as investing in knowing and understanding which AI company we're going to go with as people who work in technology. Let's talk about the business of AI and what's to come. There are a lot of different companies with AI products. I mean, there are hundreds now of AI products. However, there comes just basically with two different categories. The first is going to be consumer AI. Consumer AI is made up of Google, Microsoft, and Amazon Web Services. And they make up the majority of all consumer AI, but they're not making any money with AI. They've already said we've so far lost money, or from their perspective, invested in AI products. A lot of NVIDIA products, of course, a lot of products from AMD, some with Intel, things like that. So, what happens with consumer AI in the future? Well, at some point, these three monster companies are going to have to show a profit, or the people that are working there are going to be replaced, or it's possible a new player, yet to be named, is going to come in and take over the majority of consumer AI. There's going to be a lot of money in consumer AI. It's just going to be years before it happens. However, there's another type of AI which is already making money. Vertical market artificial intelligence. That includes things like healthcare. So healthcare AI, they're already using it to help treat diseases and cure cancer and things like that. Fantastic. Super, interested in that. I don't think it's very good yet, but it's getting there. Then there's science AI. Same kind of a thing. Looking at scientific breakthroughs with AI that will come, maybe haven't really come yet, but it's going to happen sometime in the future when AI gets better. And then stock market. I've already seen and been emailed various different companies trying to get me to buy for around $500 a stock picker AI. And they all say that they make everybody money, but then when you actually go into a product review of any of them, they're no better than a bunch of monkeys sitting in a room, picking stocks. So don't waste your money on that stuff yet. Then there's education AI. We don't really know where this is going. I know that a lot of professors are using it to help them create questions based on text. I know they're being used to help create step-by-step instructions because, that can be very tedious. And a lot of times it makes mistakes, but as long as you have the professors checking it, making sure it's all accurate, I'm all for education AI. However, I'm just not seeing how much time it's saving as of yet. Now, of course, there's cheating and hacking AI as well. And I didn't even mention the sysadmin community are using AI to help them, create PowerShell scripts. Developers are helping them create programs and various different plugins for browsers and things like that. So lots of different vertical market AI. Some of them are already making money, which is fantastic. However, if we look back into the 1990s, there were telecoms. Telecoms were the AI of the 1990s as far as business is concerned. Because up until that time, the majority of the world was not on the internet. And the people who were on it were basically looking at a lot of things, like a lot of industries were created, adult content, which built a lot of different industries. It built the whole city of Seattle, in case you ever want to look into what happened there. So beyond that and the scientific community, there wasn't a lot of use for telecoms connecting us to the internet, especially through dial-up, that horrible high-pitched squeaky stuff. However, there were 6 major companies. There are actually more than this out there, but I'm only mentioning 6 because they had an interesting finale in their company. AT&T been around for more than 100 years. It's a monster of a company. And of course, US West, that was one of the baby bells when it was split up in the 80s. Ameritech was another one of the baby bells, MCI, US Cellular, and Sprint. So all these different companies, they connected us to the internet using dial-up in the early 1990s. And then in the late 1990s, then they started connecting us with high speed. So we had always-on internet. We started at 56K. We went on, of course, to megabits of speed in the early 2000s. Now, here's an interesting thing. The companies that bought these 6 companies, you have AT&T was Singular. Singular bought AT&T, never thought that was going to happen. Tiny little company. AT&T was going on hard times in the 90s. Now, Singular was smart. They said, you know what? Nobody knows who we are. Let's just go ahead and rename us back to AT&T. So that's what they did. Then there's US West. That was purchased by Verizon. Verizon was a total upstart, a new player. Nobody had ever heard of it. VC money got behind it and created it and then went after US West. Then you've got Ameritech, another baby bell. SBC bought it and is now an AT&T company. Then you have MCI, which was purchased by Verizon. And then you have US Cellular and Sprint that were both purchased by T-Mobile. So we had 6 different companies. Now we have 3 different companies. And this isn't just the telecom industry that went through this. All new industries, all new breakthrough industries are, going through this same thing or have gone through the same thing. This is nothing new. So what does this mean? Well, you need to know what to invest your money in. You need to know what to invest your time in if you're going to work in this industry. What AI do I learn? There's hundreds of vertical market AIs, but only a few big players and possibly one new player. Well, keep this in mind. Based on what happened in the telecom and every other industry, Google's going to probably buy one or more of the vertical markets, whichever, there might be a half a dozen of them that are in healthcare. Microsoft, or I should say Google might buy the stock one, Microsoft might buy the science one, AWS might buy education. And of course, there's a lot more vertical markets, as I mentioned, that I didn't even say. And of course, you've got this new player. Now, the new player could be, once again, another Verizon that comes out of nowhere. It has no profit whatsoever, but has a ton of cash. And Verizon, of course, went after a lot of these telecom companies and bought them. A new player could happen as well. Now, some of these vertical markets are making money. The vertical market AIs are making money already. And it's certainly possible one might really break through and make just a ton of money. I'm betting on healthcare. I think healthcare, because healthcare is 20% of our gross domestic product. It's one of the reasons why we don't go with a government-sponsored healthcare like they do in Canada and the UK and parts of Europe and things like that, because it would go from 20% down to probably about 5%. And that would be a huge hit to our economy. So we're not doing it. And even though we have Obamacare, it's just really an insurance, type of a thing for people with low income. And it's really not replacing healthcare. So what could happen with these new players, a new player that has yet to be named, is going to possibly buy a company like Google. Now, think about this. Nobody thought AT&T could ever be bought out. It was one of the biggest companies in the world, and they got bought out in the 1990s. Maybe Microsoft almost got broken up multiple times by the Clinton administration. And the only thing that saved it was the Bush administration. It's possible Microsoft might even split themselves up into the gaming section, the hardware section, and the software section. They might split into 3 different companies. And then a new player could buy one or more of those new companies. AWS, Amazon Web Services. That's probably the least likely of all of them, just because they're in so many different places. But it's certainly possible 20, 30 years from now, Amazon is the Kmart of, the 2060s. And to be like, whoa, you still buy from Amazon? Come on. So nobody, of course, goes to Kmart anymore since they have all pretty much closed up in the U.S. I hear they're doing well in Australia, however, which is really weird. But this is the kind of stuff that's going to happen. It's happened in every other industry. It's going to happen in AI. So what do? Here's my suggestion. If you're investing money, I suggest you continue to invest either in Google, Microsoft, or AWS, or you invest in the companies that supply Google, Microsoft, and AWS with all of their hardware and all of their software, like NVIDIA and some of these other ones, AMD, etc. The other thing is, what do we do if we are investing our time in learning artificial intelligence? Well, that's going to be a little bit trickier. So you can still do well if you invest your time into learning healthcare AI or financial AI, education AI. And then when these companies get purchased by the big 3 or 4 that you see on the left side of the screen, then you'll still be someone who can be employed, because you know that AI and Google, Microsoft, and AWS are all going to need people who know AI. So it's a great idea to pick a vertical market that really interests you, excites you. Don't pick something just because it's there, just because it's profitable. If you're not excited and passionate about what it is you're studying, what you're learning to go, work in an industry, that's going to come across really easily to people who interview you and people who you work with. So only do what excites you, what really interests you, and you will be successful.